maybe you're a lot like me. I get easily distracted. Anybody else out there? You get easily distracted? This actually happened to me once, where I walked into a pole. Just real briefly. I was at Kent State University, okay, and here's how I remember the story. I had my backpack on. I was walking to class. I was surrounded by all of these beautiful co-eds. That's how I remember the story. And so I'm walking to class, and there were all of these concrete poles that blocked the road. Well, there was a bus parked back here. And I'm looking at the bus, and I'm wondering, how did the bus get back here with all of these concrete poles that formed a barricade? And I'm looking at the bus, and I'm looking at the poles, and I'm looking at the bus, at the poles, and I'm walking briskly, want to make sure I got to class on time. And I'm walking, and I must have looked at the bus too long because I walked smack dab into one of those concrete poles. Just nailed it. It laid me out. There I am rolling on the concrete right there, and all the co-eds just kept walking right past me, and nobody even stopped. But, I get easily distracted. And did you ever notice that the things that I get distracted by are never as important as the thing I get distracted from? I mean, is that true in your life too? The things, that's plural, because there's all of these opportunities, all of these things out there that distract me from the one thing that is most important. And so I get easily distracted. Now, I know not everything that we focus on throughout the year is a big deal, right? I mean, I know not everything is most important. And sometimes when you're distracted, it does not cause a big issue in your life. But have you ever noticed there's certain things that if you take your eye off the ball, in short order, I mean, it could be a couple of months, it could even be a couple of years down the line, you're wondering to yourself, how did I get here? I mean, what went wrong? I was on this path. I had this goal in mind. I took my eye off the ball just for a few moments, and then all of a sudden, here I am, far, far, far off track. I'd venture to say, you're in a season of life that you need to be more focused on one particular thing. And so my question for you this morning is, what is one thing in your life that has the potential to change everything? What is one thing that you need to be focused on in your life that potentially can change everything? I mean, maybe you're struggling with a bad habit. You've been trying to break that habit for years, and yet that habit just keeps on persisting. I mean, you go to break it, but then you get distracted, and you're off and running. Or maybe you have an unfinished project that you need to put the time and the energy into. Maybe you have a broken relationship with a friend or a family member that needs to be restored. I mean, in all honesty, maybe you have a relationship that needs to be retired. I've said it before, sometimes your friends aren't good for you. And so maybe we have a relationship that we don't necessarily break off the friendship, but you know what? You need to be meeting on neutral ground. Or maybe you have some debt. Maybe there's some debt out there that you need to erase. You need to pay off that debt. Or maybe this is a hard one, right? Maybe there's a degree that you need to complete. So I want to challenge you, don't let the urgent detract us or distract us from that which is most important. And it's the truth, isn't it? We have all of these urgent things that go on around us. We have all of these things that vie for our attention on a daily basis. And we don't want to let the urgent, the immediate, distract us from that which is most important. So if you have something that you need help getting across the finish line, I'm hoping that this sermon this morning is for you. I want to go back to the Old Testament, all the way back to the book of Nehemiah. The book of Nehemiah was written in 444 BC. So it's about 2,500 years old. And Nehemiah has this statement, which I think, put into our context, it's got great meaning for us today in how we stay focused on our goals, on our priorities in life. Now, just to kind of recap in history, the nation of Israel was overrun by the Assyrians. Okay, and then later on in 569 BC, the Babylonians came in. They destroyed Jerusalem. They destroyed Solomon's temple, so that grand, beautiful temple had been reduced to rubble. The Israelites were taken into captivity. They were taken to Babylon. They were taken to Persia, and they served basically as slaves for decades. Then finally, the Persians came in and defeated the Babylonians. And it was King Cyrus the Great. He allowed a remnant of the Israelites to go back into Jerusalem to rebuild their city. Several kings later was King Artaxerxes I. And once again, King Artaxerxes was allowing the Israelites to go back to their homeland, back to their capital, in order to rebuild it. Well, Nehemiah served King Artaxerxes the first. And so this is what Nehemiah records in chapter 1, beginning at verse 2. Hanani, one of my brothers, came from Judah with some other men, and I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that had survived the exile, and also about Jerusalem. So Nehemiah always lived outside of his home country. In fact, Nehemiah spent his entire life away from Jerusalem, away from what's modern-day Israel, away from Judah. And so his brother was one of those members of the remnant that went back to rebuild the city. Well, one day his brother came back, and Nehemiah questioned him. What's it like in Jerusalem? How are things going? To which his brother said, they're not going all too well. They said to me, those who survived the exile and are back in the province are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire. In other words, things are extremely bad. See, when the walls are broken down, you're open to invaders. There's no protection. There's no safety. They were at the mercy of all the nations, of all the people that surrounded them. And the nations were taking advantage of the Israelites in Jerusalem. He said the wall is broken down. The invaders could come and go as they please, and there was no gate. Now, I was trying to think of an example of this. I sit back and I think, have you ever had the door removed off of your bedroom? Maybe when you were a kid? Your parents took the door off your bedroom. It's degrading, isn't it? There's no privacy. You can't keep anybody out. You always feel like you're just completely and totally open or exposed to everyone and everything. Nehemiah said, when I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven.